Good morning and welcome to the MFA in Cultural Leadership webinar. My name is Karilyn Brown and I've had the pleasure of being the course leader since 2019. I would like to acknowledge that I'm currently situated on the country of the Ngunnawal people in regional New South Wales, whose traditional custodians have cared for the land, water and stories of these lands for generations. I pay my respects to their elders past and present and note that sovereignty was never ceded. I also acknowledge Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here with us this morning. In the first instance, I'm delighted to introduce you to two wonderful cultural leaders joining me in this conversation. Veronica Bolzon, who is a third-year cultural leadership student. Veronica is a performing arts industry professional with experience in arts management, community engagement and programming roles in a broad range of organisations within the independent arts sector, government, corporate and not-for-profit sectors, including as executive producer of Yirramboi First Nations Arts Festival in 2017 and executive producer Philip Adams Ballet Lab. She is passionate about community engagement, strategic planning, relationship management and artistic collaboration, and actively involved in the arts and cultural sectors, both locally and nationally. Veronica is focused on producing and leading in small to medium arts organisations and working with diverse and underrepresented cultures and artists and other individuals with a contemporary arts focus. Jacqueline Campton, who is known as Jax, is a second-year cultural leadership student. Born in Yirrandij land, Jax is a proud Wuthati and Zanath Kes woman. She currently lives on Yugaba country with her husband and two children. Jax found her love for the arts through QL2 Centre for Youth Dance and then went on to study at nida.edu.au Dance College and Queensland University of Technology, completing a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Dance and Indigenous Studies with distinction. Throughout her career, Jax has experienced an array of amazing opportunities, artistically as a performer, dance teacher, choreographer, event host, and creative producer, and professionally working in the arts and culture, education, media, communications, and event sectors. Jax is also the co-founder of Muggera, a cultural performance and education company. She is unequivocally dedicated to her family, culture, identity, and the creative practices of First Nations people. Jax is the recipient of the Luminous Foundation Indigenous Fellowship in Cultural Leadership. Thank you both so much for being here with me this morning. Before we start our conversation, I would like to provide a brief overview on the Cultural Leadership course. The course was established in 2016 to meet a much needed platform for inspiring innovative leadership in the arts and cultural sector, an academic course that builds on the connections and synergies across disciplines and develops leadership values around inclusivity, collaboration, shared knowledge and aspirational thinking. It is a course imbued with a commitment to empower transformational change, and it challenges students to question and debate the role of the cultural sector in our society and their own place within it. It is designed specifically for those who already have active roles in the cultural sector and who aspire to facilitate new and resilient leadership models. Students are encouraged to exchange and collaborate in innovative and entrepreneurial approaches to creative and professional practice. Delivered over 30 months, the part-time course offers online learning and 4 face-to-face intensives each year at NIDA in Sydney. Topics include leadership and governance, cultural policy and practice, entrepreneurial modelling, communication, advocacy, cultural transformation and sustainability, research generated through practice, and international leadership models. Course subjects are taught by experienced cultural leaders in the arts industry and supported by senior NIDA academics. We offer students unprecedented access to exceptional cultural leaders as guest speakers, panelists, and assessors. Cohort sizes average between 10 to 15 students who come from every state and territory and who work in a wide range of practices, including the performing arts, libraries, museums and galleries, festivals, state and local government, writers' centres, independent producing, film design, and community cultural development. I'll provide a little more detail at the end of the session, but now we can hear firsthand from Veronica and Jax about their experience with the course. So again, thank you both. Can I also thank those of you who have joined us this morning? I hope very much that you will find this a rewarding and informative conversation, and please don't hesitate to ask any questions, and we'll get to a Q&A probably in about 15 to 20 minutes or so, and I welcome questions from you. So to kickstart our conversation, Jax, I might ask you first, but also Veronica. I'm sure that prospective applicants would like to hear about your work and your experience in the arts and cultural sector, and what led you to the Cultural Leadership course and why. So Jax, would you be happy to head off first?
Sure. I guess for me, it came at the perfect time, and I think that's something to think about when you're mid-career or you're in a space in your career where you want to achieve more. Like, there's a lot of people out there that are trained or have done some sort of bachelor before or some certificates at some other institution, and there seems to be sort of a gap in those postgraduate degrees and ones that really fit to what we're doing. So there was a time in my professional career where I felt like I needed to do more, I needed to learn more, and I wanted to extend my learnings. And this came at the perfect time, and it took a long time for me to think about it as a mum and as someone that's, you know, working full time. But I think that it really aligned to my want for change, as Karilyn talked about, my want for formative change, for structural change, especially in the First Nations space. There wasn't a course that I felt aligned to like this course. There's a lot of freedom to express yourself, to have a voice, and so this is what I've taken this opportunity as, and hope that I can continue to learn all the things that I need to help inform our art and cultural spaces in the best way possible. But yeah, it came at the perfect time, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I think it's very much about it being the right thing at the right time, but we'll come back to that. Veronica.
Really similar to Jax, actually. Career arts person, I was seeking something more, and I didn't really know what it was, and I felt like I was working in spaces where I was working with a lot of people who were in management and leadership roles, and some of them I found myself sort of questioning like what their approach was, how they got to where they are, and what was around that could help me sort of solidify, everything that I was building already. And then I'd heard about this course, and it was just something, I like to sort of really go with my gut instinct, and it just was like, this is the course. And I just wanted to follow that, really. And I knew a few people had been doing it or had done it and graduated, so I had a few conversations with them, and I found that really helpful. And yeah, it was just something that I knew was at the right time for me to really build on everything. And now coming out of this other end, I can see how, that journey has really pulled me through in this really sort of profound way that I didn't even realize actually when I first started it, going in almost naively going, oh yeah, there's some things I want to get out of this. But coming out the other end, it's really quite transformative for sure.
Thank you both. No, it's very interesting, isn't it? We actually do have some students who have looked at the course for 2 or 3 years and then finding, oh yeah, I think now's the time, I'm ready for that. And it's not so much that it's about the course, it's often where you are at as an individual and when it's the right time in terms of your own practice and the sorts of areas that you're wanting to engage in and work with. And we will come back to that a little bit more about the course specifically, but I'm really interested too in, there are clearly some very obvious challenges for us all, but what would you say, if you were thinking about the next 5 years or so, what would you say are some of the critical challenges for those of us working in culture, arts and cultural context and wanting to take a leadership role? Veronica, would you have some thoughts?
Yeah, I've been thinking. I mean, the obvious one is COVID, but I think, you know, as much as I'd see that as an obstacle, I do really try and think about that as an opportunity as well. Which, you know, on the good days, that's how I like to try and think about it. But also, just in terms of, I think if you're thinking of the next 5 years and the way we even engage with other people internationally, like on a global platform, also the way we engage with and work with a diversity of communities and artists. For me, I mean, I think that's really critical to dive more deeply, and this is the opportunity to do that. And definitely through this course, I think that it's really helped me sort of slice right through to what's really critical right now. For me, my passion lies with collaborating with artists. So, you know, I'm all about the artist and the artist voice. And so that's something that I really want to champion and be part of, you know, just pulling into the fore a lot more than, I mean, it of course it is and always will be, but it's something that I think that is a great opportunity for that creative voice to come through. And as a leader, be more of a, I guess, sort of lead from behind as opposed to in front. That's kind of how I see it. So, yeah.
Interesting, yeah.
And I think for me, it's kind of a couple of things, but predominantly at the beginning, it was I mean, we've had so many great First Nations trailblazers in the arts and cultural space for a long time, and we look up to these people who have done the hard yards, who have paved the way, and there's a need now for the next wave to move forward and to take up those spaces as well and learn and you know, feel the generational gaps that are happening in this sector. So that was a driving force for me, because I could see myself doing the things that a lot of those people have done or are doing. So there's that leaning towards, you know, that's a goal and a really important place I want to be soon. But the other side is I had a really distinct passion for creating culturally safe spaces and places where people create art or create their voices. So creating really important, you know, whatever it is, from contracts to, you know, appropriate, you know, green rooms to shower, you know, all the things that kind of don't get looked at in a culturally safe way. So it's all of that, you know, being a dancer and a practitioner and a cultural dancer as well, you get to see in the background of all the things and you can see the gaps. So that was the other side of it for me too, is to how can I use my voice to make these places better so we can be our authentic selves and not have to feel like we are dumbing ourselves down or dimming our lights just to, you know, perform for others, you know. So that was the two things for me, yeah.
I think one of the things that you know, you might reflect on, but my sense is that the course isn't about. I mean, there's a lot that is provided within the course, of course, you know, resources and amazing guest speakers and facilitators, but it's actually so much of it is about taking what you want and need from that and taking it back into your own practice. So it's not trying to mold people into a different type of person, or, you know, when it's not a course. There are some extraordinary management and arts administration and curatorial courses out there, but this course isn't about management or financial management or anything like that. It really, you know, somebody recently said that they realized that it was so much more a reflection on my own personal growth, you know, within the course, and how I then am able to take what I need from that and apply it. And Jax, I think that's been something that you've, for 18 months now has been, you know, and for you too, Veronica, there is a degree of tension in that too, because you know, a lot of what students I have found in the 2.5 years I've been there too is that students are creating new knowledge. students are creating new areas of thinking, that because it's the place where you can investigate, you can delve deep, you can go to places that you may not have felt comfortable about or didn't ever really inquire about before, and you can push back as much as well. Would that be something that you would both have felt from your period within the course?
Totally.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely been challenges, and having that space to be challenged and to get it wrong, and to, the beauty of it is your cohort. Your cohort is from such an array of places that know knowledge and know different ways of thinking, and so when you bring that all together, you're learning on the spot. And because we're not in an organization or in a company together, we get to move and create and throw up ideas in a space that's safe, and where there can be, those tough conversations, those tension conversations, but that teaches you how to have those conversations in the real world or away from the course. So it's been, it's definitely learning. And like you said, Karilyn, you learn more about yourself and how you react and can participate in those conversations, and how to lean into your knowledge or lean away from your, unlearn some knowledge too. That's really, doing that on the road or in the real life is quite hard, because, we all have lives to lead, but in this space, there's a safety net there where we can really talk about it and discuss it. So yeah, it's been really valuable in that way, for sure.
Yeah, you really, there's so much that it's very hard to sort of, you could spend hours talking about this stuff really passionately. But I think it took me a little while to really understand what I was going to get out of it. So because it is that, it's a master's by coursework. So there is a lot of, there's subjects, and you have lectures, and, you do readings, and you have to respond to certain things. And I think it took me a while to realize, oh, actually, this is me. I'm gathering my toolbox here. That's what I'm doing. So to really flip it around and see it as the gathering of the tools that I would take as a leader, and that sort of sit with me and my approach and my practice and all those things, and how they all come together. That's, I think, has been really critical for me to see for myself. And once I sort of was able to flip it to, okay, how does this course work for me and give me the things that I need, then I could sort of move forward in a different way and respond and be open in a different way. And you're learning a lot all the time, but definitely, as Jax was saying, from the cohort, like, I really was, excited to learn, to meet some new people. But these are people that I will, collaborate with in the future. They're people I'll work with, no doubt. I already, draw upon them for advice, to run something by them, to understand a different perspective. So, it's an invaluable, bunch of people that you get to go on this incredible journey with. Yeah.
No, that's right, and I, that's one of the extraordinary things too, is that, as I mentioned in the introduction, everybody comes from all around Australia and different forms of practice, and that has been consistently been a lot of the feedback is around working with people who bring those different knowledges, as you said, Jax, to the table, and learn from that, and then apply it differently. And many have done that, have gone, wow, that's interesting. I didn't realize that that's what you'd be doing in your area of practice, and how sometimes it's modeling. It's modeling that is done in a different way, and then you can bring it to bear in what you're doing. But I have to say, I'm completely inspired by the cohorts, because every cohort is amazing, dynamically connected, incredibly collaborative and supportive, and open to sharing experiences and knowledge. And sometimes that is, sometimes it can be where somebody does share a particularly challenging situation that they have, and others in the cohort will go, well, let's have an hour together and let's nut through what that could look like and what some thinking around that could be. So no, it's pretty. So have there been, well, I should clarify for everybody listening too, because both Jax and Veronica, as I've indicated, are current students. Veronica is in what we call third year, because We actually deferred an entire cohort, the 2019 cohort, for a year because of COVID, and the hope that they would be able to undertake their international placements this year in person. That hasn't been possible, and we've come up with alternative ways for students to be able to complete the international placement without travel, but working with an international organisation. And Veronica, you might want to talk about the one that you're involved in. And Jax is in second year, but as current students, it's very much, you know, you haven't done the international placements as yet, but what would be one or two other highlights for you in terms of perhaps course content or any other aspects that you would think of? I'll come to the challenges as well.
Yeah. A couple of things that come to mind, and that's was pretty funny, and a lot of the people in our cohort were laughing about as well, was some of the subjects you kind of go, oh God, this is going to be a bit dry, like the, you know, the governance one. Oh God, really? And then it turns out to be the favourite subject. Like, I can't tell you how amazing it just sort of flipped the lid on everything. And that is, of course, definitely in part due to the lecturer themselves. The way they bring you this information, which could normally be quite dry, but of course it's in the context of, you know, experiences and things that have happened, and then how we can sort of think about them in terms of, you know, our own experience or our own thoughts and ideas. Yeah, that has been a refreshing surprise for me, just some of those subjects being way more interesting, like in this really nerdy kind of way, that I've really enjoyed. So that was definitely a surprise. But the diversity of panelists as well, like I think everyone, all the team, the lecturing team and Karilyn are really invested in bringing incredible people to us. And that has been such a joy and pleasure and super inspiring. So when we all get to come together and then have, you know, 3 or 4 people come and talk to us about different topics or their own experiences, it's just like, it really is a beautiful thing to be part of. And you feel like you're part of a community, really. You know, you're not just sitting there listening to them and thinking, oh yeah, one day I wish. You sort of start going, oh, okay, yeah, we're all in this together. It's a beautiful feeling to have, actually.
Yeah, it's very true.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. So true about leadership and governance. But yeah, I just want to also just say the same thing. The guest speakers and the lecturers have, you know, there's been a famous time where I've cried uncontrollably because I've been so inspired in a class. So, you know, there's people that I've never met and who you get to ask really cool questions to, and they really want to genuinely know who you are and know what you're doing, because they also believe what Veronica said, we are all in this together, and they genuinely do want to help in any way possible. So there's such amazing networking happening, there's collaborating, there's you know, people from, you know, the big bodies that we all work under or for, or, you know, are a part of, and we need to know these people and we need to know how to engage with them. So yeah, it's really been there's a few fangirl moments I've had, which is fine, but yeah, it's been so good, and you just are a sponge in those places. And again, like I said before, it's a safe sponge where you just like soak it all up and you can just hold on to all the things. So yeah, it's been awesome to meet all those people for sure.
Yeah. And I think you're both absolutely right. There is the generosity of people is extraordinary, isn't it? I don't think we have had a single person who hasn't at the end said, here's my email. Is there anybody who wants to have a chat anytime? Very happy to. And that has been followed up, and they've been very generous with their time as well. And you are part of that larger community. You are alongside these people, and it is part of your community and your professional and your personal and your cultural community. So it's a really important point. But there are also challenges, significant challenges from time to time. What would a couple of those be for you? I know what they are.
One of the challenges for me personally was time. working, as an executive director in a organisation with a venue attached. That was a lot of my focus, and the same year I got that job, I also started this course. So it was a bit of a train smash of two competing, really important things. And I was, just thinking about this yesterday, how I think in the first year I just tried to continue doing everything that I do. I'm in a relationship. I'm a panel judge on, for festivals on, looking at dance works and other things. And also, I'm a panelist on grant rounds and things like that. But I tried to just keep doing all of it, and the study was suffering, essentially. I felt like I was sort of just scraping by, in a sense, in a way that I wasn't good for me. And I feel like these courses, you need time, like headspace time to, thinking time, just to let things mull around and then maybe arrive at an idea or an answer. So it took quite a bit of time before I actually decided to stop trying to do everything and be everything to everyone, and just really hone in on my work and the study. And because those two things actually complemented each other so incredibly anyway, as is obviously the point. So I just allowed those two things to swirl around each other. And personally, I ended up taking off from a full-time job just a half a day a week, so that I could not always spend nights and weekends on study, but I had a little bit of one afternoon a week, which was just my time to read and to digest and think. And yeah, that was really good. So time management is just something to really, really think about, for sure.
And that's right. I think, look, others have said at different times that it can be somewhere between 6 to 8 hours a week and another 6 to 8 hours on the weekend. It is a significant time commitment. That sometimes it's more than that, and sometimes it's less than that. Everybody has their own study pattern, and study patterns get disrupted for family life and work things. There's always that, but I think it's a really important point that you find a pattern, and if it gets a little disrupted for a couple of weeks, but you come back to it, it's when you get really a few weeks into a disrupted pattern that it can be very hard to come back to catching up, really. And people do need to be conscious of the fact that it is that significant time, and the challenge, it's just because life happens. Life happens, and I should also let people know that we endeavour to be as flexible as we can be around some, due dates, or, if circumstances are such that somebody needs to defer a student, we'll look at that, absolutely. It is, the cohort sizes, as I mentioned, are somewhere between 10 and 12 to 15. Jax's cohort called themselves the COVID-8 by the end of 2020. They started at 16, and because of the terrible, devastating circumstances of last year, many lost their employment and their jobs. But of those people, 3 have come back this year to study, and 3 are coming back next year. So, we can find flexible ways to respond, but that time commitment's a significant challenge. How about for you, Jax?
I mean, you could probably hear what my challenge is. I mean, being a mum of 2 and working full time and then taking on studies, difficult. It's a huge challenge. I thought I could, just like Veronica said, I thought I could do it like my undergrad, where I had no children and could stay up late and do the things. I learned really quickly that's not achievable. So there had to be really, I had to really rechange my ways of doing from before and relearn a new way to fit my new life. Because, yeah, there's, relationships, husbands, kids, school, lockdowns, homeschooling, things like that. You just have to roll with. And I think that the other side of that time management, I'm sure you can hear them, but anyway, sorry. The other side of that is also, being a passionate person and really wanting change for my people. Sometimes I take all of that on my shoulders, and my assessments, I use every assessment or little tiny feedback thing I use and I really take on board, but sometimes that can be really exhausting to sit in that space for long periods of time, to continually write about it, and to, you know, so if there's any First Nations people on this call, like I just to think about that, and to really know that it is going to be a lot, and you will want to write about this, because these are the spaces we live in and work in. So it's just to be conscious of that and how much time you're giving, especially now, especially last year, and all the things in the media and things. So that we live it, we breathe it, and then when you study it and work on it, and then it's in the news all the time, you can't really have anywhere to take a break. So there's that sort of balancing of that sort of access, and you got to put some really hard boundaries in, which at first feel uncomfortable and not what you'd want to be, but it's about self-preservation at that point, and we all know what that means because of COVID. So yeah, that's another skill that I've had to really think about.
No, that's very true. And we're doing, look, you know, this course is evolving. It evolves. It will always evolve. And certainly over the last 18 months or so, there's been some really important learnings for the course as a whole. And Jacob Baum was appointed as the First Nation lecturer at the end of last year, and that's an evolving role as well. And we're doing quite a bit of work looking at, you know, what really do we mean across NIDA about embedding First Nations knowledge? What does that actually look like, and how real can that be within such a strongly 60-year Western cultural framework? So, you know, these processes shouldn't be, but they will take time to change and implement within the structure that we have. And there's certainly a growing commitment to look at how are we addressing the academic professional learning needs for First Nation students. So when that students are not in a position where they're having to be the teachers. So there, you know, there's a lot of work to do and is being done. But again, that shared generosity, whether we have students of various cultural backgrounds and linguistic backgrounds, and you know, that again is part of what the process is within this course, is actually addressing the biases, addressing that what we think and perceive, and what does it look like in our own organizations or our own practice, etc. So they are ongoing challenges, certainly, but you're absolutely right, Jax, in the context of the unremitting engagement around your cultural context. We'll start to take some questions if anybody's happy to forward some questions. I'm really happy to take those on and read them out. There are a couple of other things that I suppose I wanted to check in with you too. I mean, you've both discussed how that some of the learnings you're being able to apply. Would you have any advice for prospective students, apart from what you've already discussed around time management, etc.? But are there any things that you would advise prospective students to think about, as you have also just done as well, Jax, in terms of the course? And
I don't know if it's advice as much as, I guess, a learning, is that this is the place really to find your voice and speak your truth for you, and feel like you can contribute something, and also listen and take on new things and new ideas. So it's a great space for that. I think for me, I realised that, you know, in some of in the assignments, for example, some of the more successful assignments, in my opinion, were the ones where I just went, you know what, stuff it, this is what I think, and I'm just going to say it, as opposed to, oh, blah, blah said this, and therefore I think similar. You know, no, I sort of started, you know, just letting that go, that whole idea around, you know, especially when you're doing a course, you know, in academia, what that might mean, and what your own sort of, you know, preconceptions of that is. And also for me, not being at university for a long time and coming back into it sort of later in my life, in my career, it took a while to sort of unpick some of those things I'd put on myself, expectations. So that was a really freeing thing for me, just being able to go, this is my voice and I'm just going to put it out there. And the cohort has actually inspired me, because we had some really strong voices in our cohort, and I really took inspiration from them to do that myself. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Great.
Some advice. I think just have a real think about who you are, what spaces you've been in before, what spaces you want to take up, where you think your voice is its most authentic, and really try and not hone in on it, because that will come over the course, but just to pick up on those sort of times when you felt like, I could say something here, or this probably needs to be changed, and find that passion. Because if you don't, for me, this is my personal opinion obviously, but if there's no passion there, I probably won't do it. So that's why if I don't have that drive, if I don't have that fire in my belly, then I probably won't do it, or I probably will do a really half decent job, and that's just not who I am, unfortunately. So yeah, it's to find that drive, find that fire, and that will guide you through this. And especially in the times of the world now, it's really important to have that spark and that ember going throughout this whole time, or else it can fall away. So you've got to continually check in on that fire and be like, okay, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? So yeah, it's that, going into yourself and going through what you've experienced and try and solidify what that means to you.
Yeah. No, that's such an important point. And yes, because of all of those external challenges and, that come our way. And certainly one of the challenges is that for those listening, that we've probably done half of our, have we? I think this year we've only been able to do 2 of our intensives in person and 2 online. Our next intensive is at the end of October, and we're very much hoping that will be in person. But it may not be. But I have to say that all cohorts have just responded so well to being able to do what are intensives. We currently have one student who's in New York, and she's joining the intensives from 9 p.m. until 3 a.m. 4 days in a row. And we have students in Perth, of course, or Western Australia, so that's 2 hours behind. So there's a constant process of making sure we're getting the best that we can to get the time zone suitable for everybody. But that's a challenge in itself. Is being online on Zoom for an intensive is very challenging, and we all know that while the incredible collegiality and magic that happens within the cohort is still there, it's nothing quite like what it is when we can be in person. So we're very much looking forward to next year, when I very much hope we will be having more of the intensives in person. And as I said, we do have them here in Sydney. I'm not in Sydney, but they're held in Sydney at NIDA. But one year we held one in Melbourne, because I'm really keen to hold an intensive in somewhere else, not Sydney. And when we did hold it in Melbourne, it was fantastic. It was such a great way to connect with Victorian artists and creatives and case studies and so forth. So we have a couple of questions, and I need to keep an eye on the time. One question is, when does the international component need to be completed by? So the international case study is the last subject that you do in this course. So normally the program would be, for example, all 2002 and 2022 and 2023, you would be doing all the other 8 subjects, I think it is. And then you complete all those subjects, and then you undertake the international placement in order to graduate in 2024. So I would very much hope that for the cohort coming in next year, and indeed for this year's first year cohort, that you will be able to undertake your international placements with travel and have immersive experience internationally. But interestingly, there are some students who are reconsidering the option of being able to potentially work with an international organisation without travel is important to them because they don't want to do the footprint. You know, some have circumstances where international travel is going to be very challenging anyway. So actually we came up with some, I think, some valuable alternative ways of undertaking the international placement. And I believe that, well, not I believe, I will continue to keep those options there, because I think people need to have some flexibility around how they do undertake that subject. And how is the online component? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I want to add to what you're saying, Karilyn, just for the people who are listening around that. What you'll find and what's really fantastic about working with Karilyn and the team at NIDA is that they really do work with whatever the current situation is. I mean, COVID is just like, you know, the kind of the most crazy, you know, situation. But everyone has been really flexible and really listened to the cohort and where we're all at and what we think, you know, where things are going. And we've really sort of sensitively assessed where everyone's at and what might be required moving forward. And that has been a great thing. Like, it just feels like a conversation you can have. It's not like it's a teacher-student thing in that same kind of way and in that hierarchical way. So regardless of what, you know, gets thrown at everybody in the next, you know, couple of years, there is a lot of flexibility about how we might even think and approach the research project. Yeah.
Thank you, Veronica. One question is, how is the online component delivered? Is it live lectures at scheduled times or done in own time? It's a mix. So every subject has an online component, and that will normally be somewhere between 7 and 10 weekly online assignments or fortnightly online assignments, which will have reading material and be around, oh, did we just lose Jax? Oh no. Would be around 400 to 500 word weekly or fortnightly response. And then that can be interspersed with some tutorials. A couple of teachers are starting to increasingly add in a guest lecturer for a 1.5 hour session. So it's a mix of those. But yes, every subject has a concrete online program. And that comes back to your study pattern as well, just making sure you're putting in that couple of hours a week or a fortnight to do the reading and to do the response. Another question is there any possibility of viewing some of the course materials, subject outlines, etc., to get a sense of the content of the subjects? So we do have subject outlines, and I'm happy to, for anybody individually after this session, I'm really happy to have a Zoom meeting with you or a telephone call with you to go through more detail in the subjects. The subject outlines, there's an overview on the website, so there's quite a lot of information on the website on the Cultural Leadership course. And I can make some subject outlines available. They're normally not available publicly, but certainly I'm really happy to talk that through with you in terms of what the subjects are. If you would like more information, then that is available on the website. I think that might be it for questions for the moment, but so what I will do now is thank Jax and Veronica so much for being available for the morning session. Is there anything else that you have thought, oh, I must mention this? I think you've covered a lot of really great ground. Thank you.
I just thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Sure. Thank you.
It's great. Thanks so much, both of you. And I'll go into to share a slide with you all now. But as I said before, while Jax and Veronica are here, please don't hesitate to make contact with me. My details will come up shortly. Very happy to discuss the course in more detail with you. Thank you both so much. Okay, I'm going to go into sharing a couple of slides now. I can get this happening. Is that coming up on share screen? Thank you so much, Beth. Okay, so why can't I get that to go into the slideshow? There we go. Oh, okay, so just as a final couple of slides, just to recap, as I mentioned earlier, that here are the subjects that you would be doing in your first 12 months. So in 2022 is leadership and governance. communications and persuasive presentation, cultural policy and practice, and generating research through practice A. And then the next 18 months is cultural transformation and sustainability, generating research through practice B, communications and advocacy. So it has a strong engagement with advocacy at that point, research methodologies for cultural leaders, which is a new subject that I'm developing at the moment. And then, as I said, the international case study. You will also find online on the website of the teachers for the different subjects, and we have an amazing cohort of teachers, so please do make yourselves familiar with them as well. Now it's not going to go. Whoa, sorry everybody. The intensive dates for 2022. So the intensive one is the orientation week. So there's a day of orientation for NIDA and a day of orientation in the cultural leadership course. And then we jump into your first couple of subjects through the intensive mode. That for 2nd to 7th of February is for the first year cohort only. Intensive 2, late April to early May, is when both cohorts come together in Sydney. Intensive 3, 29th of July to the 2nd of August is both cohorts, and intensive 4, end of October with both cohorts. So those dates are, look, there will always be some conflict with whether it's the Edinburgh Festival or the Adelaide Festival or it will be, you know, a major library conference, whatever. There will always be some conflict. And where that happens, we will endeavour always to record the session. So if you can't be there on a Saturday because you're performing that evening, whatever it may be, we will find the avenue to record the session and make sure that you have the opportunity to catch up on the guest speakers and the lectures and so forth. Applying is an application form. It's a button on the website providing a detailed CV of up to 3 pages and a personal statement outlining your interest in the course and any leadership experience that you have. This is really where I'm looking for why is it the right course at the right time for you. The closing date was the end of August, but it's now the 30th of September. And then I'll be going into interviews around early mid-October and providing advice of the outcome of those interviews by mid-November. So I'm really keen to make sure that for those who have been accepted into the course, that you have at least a couple of months to get to be ready for that, to look at your year ahead and plan for your year ahead. But also I'll provide some preliminary readings so that when you come in February, it's not completely cold turkey for you. And my details are here, so Karilyn.brown@nida.edu.au. The phone number is 02 9697 7645. That phone number diverts to my mobile number, so I will take your calls. Please leave a message if I'm not able to. And I very much look forward to connecting with you. So thank you so much for joining the Cultural Leadership webinar today. It's been great to have you there. I'm sorry we haven't been able to see you. It's just the technology doesn't allow that on this at this point, but please do be in touch. Thank you again. Thank you again to Jax and Veronica. Bye.